It'll be a nice flow of conversation. You know, I think.
Yeah, it should be great. I'm looking forward to it. Hi, Rabbi.
Hi. I look like death warmed over. Oh my god.
So do I. And I feel like I need to do something. I have to put my camera like this way. But
all right, well,
I
have to rename myself so that I'm not Iris.
I think you look good.
Thank you.
Rabbi Angela and I are probably going to walk the reservation on Wednesday just so she can get an idea. Will you send me a copy digitally of your?
I can do that. In fact, I think I've already got it in the Dropbox. I just need to share it with you.
Because then I can send it to Angela. She doesn't want to.
Sure.
So because she can observe like the water. We can do water testing. We can do whatever but she wants to blend it with yours.
Sure. Give me just a second and
Sorry,
I will
Dana,
go.
don't mean to cut in on your.
No, it's fine.
How are you, Dana?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Excellent. Good.
Nice week off. I had a different week off than my kids did, so it was nice.
Oh.
I feel like it was 2 weeks of a spring break now. You know,
that's kind of lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice. I don't want to go back to work, so.
All right, give me just a second. I'm just realizing I don't have earrings. I don't really feel human. Right.
I feel the same way. I feel strange. I don't have earrings. I want to share my screen. Tell me if this looks good because this is what we're just going to have a couple of slides. You can see this okay, right, Lori?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to start with this screen and then when Pam talks, we'll do the ladder. And then we'll just go into, I'll introduce the breakout rooms and that's it.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
Yeah, it'll be good. I emailed everyone. I said, instead of moving each person to different rooms, I'm going to move myself, Pam, and Jen around the rooms.
Oh, good idea.
Like I'm sitting there, I'm going like, there's going to be like 8 or 9 people per room. It doesn't.
Okay. All right. Okay. Beautiful. All right, so we have 18 participants. It's good to see everybody. And Lori, you'll let us know how you want to kick things off and all that good stuff.
Well, Dana is running the show on this one.
Awesome.
So,
hi, I think actually Pam is going to get us started. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Dana Weeks. I work, my day job is a school psychologist on the computer this year. And I'm also a behaviorist. And I'm happy to be here with everyone today. And hopefully you can leave today with some personal tools for yourself. I'm going to share my screen and Pam, do you want to get started?
I do.
Okay.
Ready? I'm going to start us today with breath exercise just for about 90 seconds, really short. I'm picking this one because it has some stillness in it. So I think that in addition to the idea of breathing, we're going to try to feel what it feels like to be still. So in polyvagal theory, the best form of breath work, or the breath work that engages our safety system, is the one where your out breath is longer than your in breath. So if you were to breathe in for 2 counts, you'd breathe out for at least 3. Okay. And that's personal preference. Everyone's lung capacity is different. Everyone's comfort level is different. There's no right answer, except that your out breath is longer than your in breath. So the breath we're going to do is you're going to try, if you can, to breathe 4 counts in. You're just going to count in your head. You're going to hold it for 2. And hold it doesn't mean with might. It means with gentility, right? And it means with stillness, and to see what that 2 count feels like. You're going to breathe out for 6. If you can, as long as it's longer, it's fine. Then hold for that stillness for 2. So it's very similar to the old type of box breathing that you might remember, right? 4, 4, 4, 4. But in order to get the polyvagal piece in, we do the out breath longer. So it's some kind of crazy geometrical shape. And I am terrible at geometry, so I'm not going to even try to name it. So it's 4 in. If you can't do 4, do 2, 1, 3, 1, whatever you can do. So it's in breath, still, out breath longer, still. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you in with a deep breath and an exhale. I'm gonna say begin. I will keep the time and just focus on your breathing. There's really nothing else. It's kind of lovely. There's nothing else that you have to do right now except focus on your breathing. If you can sit in a comfortable way, put your feet on the ground, grounded, put your hands somewhere where they are grounded, uncross everything. Don't leave anything crossed. If you want to close your eyes, fine. If you cannot, or it's not comfortable, stare at the ground in what we call lazy gaze, where you just kind of, your eyes get blurry and then you blink when you have to. So please take a deep breath in, then let it go and begin. If you would, finish the round you're on so that you come to your last 2 count of stillness. Now take a deep breath in, then let it go. Open your eyes when you're ready. Okay. Dana. Okay, so this is me again, still me. So we've been studying polyvagal theory for a couple of weeks. So this is really the simplest way to understand it. And you don't even need to know all of the brain parts. What you need to understand is sometimes your brain gets overwhelmed. Sometimes our bodies get overwhelmed. One of the options when we get overwhelmed is we shut down, okay? That's dorsal vagal shutdown. You can feel disconnected, you can feel numb, you really cannot move, okay? And these don't have to be lasting very long. It can be a few minutes, but you just shut down. You're not interacting with the world. Another option of what happens when our bodies get overwhelmed is the sympathetic nervous system gets completely mobilized for fight or flight. And this is not the kind of fight or fleeing that is effective. This is a frenzied state, okay? Because sometimes we need to fight. Sometimes we need to flee, but this is a frenzy, okay? When you're doing more than you have to, when you worry more than you have to, where you are just a buzz, okay? The safest place, and as we've talked about, when we feel connected with people, when we feel connected to the environment, when we feel connected all around, is our ventral vagal safest place. So that's where we're safe, we are social, we are calm, we are connected. Now it's interesting because we feel most connected in that space, and it's connection that also brings us to that space. So it is both. So that's just what we want when we're talking about finding your safest place, finding your comfortable and connected place. We're talking about this ventral vagal state of being where you're safe, you're a social, whatever that means for you, and you feel connected to yourself and the world around you. Okay, that's the brief.
That's the summary. So today we're going to be exploring stillness in reference to the polyvagal theory. So just before, what we're going to do really today is it's going to be a lot more interactive. We're going to be breaking up into 3 different groups. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about stillness and also talk about what each topic is going to be in those groups. So going back, to the polyvagal ladder, when you're aware of these 3 states of your nervous system, you can learn then to recognize which state you're currently in. And also kind of what you can do to come back to a place of safety. And that's where you can really benefit, actually enjoy the benefits of stillness. Stillness really reduces the responses in the parasympathetic system, which is responsible for that fight or flight, and increases the responses in the sympathetic system. So it's really responsible for rest and relaxation. So in other words, if it calms your mind and it allows you to feel more at peace and less stressed out. So really the goal is stillness, but also being present, while you're still. And again, we'll be breaking up into 3 different, you're going to be in the same group where we're really going to explore 3 different topics. We're going to focus on these topics for about 7 to 10 minutes. I'll be leading one of the topics. Pam is going to be leading one of the topics, and Jen will be leading one of the topics. The first topic is going to be how to build a space for stillness. So we'll be discussing kind of what factors that you'd want to take into consideration when you're building this space, like qualities, location, the size, the shape of the space. The goal of this topic is not only to help you identify places that create an opportunity to feel rest, it's also an opportunity to explore places that feel that you have feelings of restlessness in as well. So we're really looking to identify what works and what doesn't work. The second topic we'll be discussing is we're calling it creating a polyvagal sensory kit. So what that means is, again, at times we're in a world where we feel like we're having almost like a sensory overload, almost like as if each one of our senses is in a constant state of overstimulation. So what that happens consequentially is that your nervous system kind of becomes the driving force of our bodies, and it's hard to always feel like we're in control of that. So this topic will kind of help us explore, which senses work best for you, so that you can kind of train your brain to be quiet and to focus on that really deep stillness behind all those senses. So you might find that sensory overload or a lot of senses is comforting, and that's something that brings stillness, or you might need that kind of lack of senses to really, get you to the place where you feel that you can achieve that calmness. And then the last topic is we'll really be exploring pre-COVID versus COVID, which is where we are right now. When we sense danger, we can take certain actions to be safe. And when we sense danger and we feel trapped and we can't escape those dangers, we feel immobilized and shut down. So we're going to explore, since COVID, we've kind of been collectively in a survival mode right now. Individuals are struggling to stay safe, stay socially connected. So in this topic, we'll be discussing what stillness maybe was for us pre-COVID and what stillness is for us now and how it's changed. We'll explore different ways that we've felt connected and safe during this time. Then again, we'll stay in our groups. I'll just have everyone move around for the topic, and I'll give you guys like a 1-minute warning for the next topic, and then I'll just be jumping around, and then we'll come back to regroup, and then we'll hear from Rabbi Alana. So before I break up into any groups, anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, great. So I'm going to work on this breakout room. All right, here we go.
If we're unassigned, does that make us our own breakout room? I don't know how that works. All right. Well, oh, okay. People are being assigned. Good. Irma's in room 2. Okay, and Eddie, you're in room 1. Leslie's in room 3. Irma, do you know how to get to room 2? Okay, do you have a thing that says breakout rooms in progress? Is there a little box? Do you see it? Do you see where it says room 2 and then next to it there's a blue word that says join? If you click on join. There you go. And Leslie, I don't know if you're listening, if you're doing something else, but you can join. Well, so you don't want to go to the breakout room? Okay, whatever you want to do.
I've been getting into candles much more than I ever have before. Scents have definitely made a difference. I have like a variety of different candles that I've had some of these candles for a while, and I just never really like lit them. And just almost in the last month or so, maybe 2 months, all of a sudden, every time we sit down, if I'm going to be working on the computer for a day, even when I'm teaching family school, I find that it's nice before I start to light a candle and have a scent. Like I said, I don't know if I don't think I would describe it as my first go-to, but
it's
it
what
has
you're
become
remembering.
something that's more important to me in the last few months. And it's been very pleasant.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else?
Well, I'm a walker, and I think it's also sound for me, and yet it's not. I cannot listen to a podcast. I don't want to really talk to anyone else while I'm walking. I'm listening to nature. I'm listening to the birds. I'm listening to the water, of the flowing water near where I live. And sometimes there's just other sounds that kind of come in. And so I know that I connect very deeply with sound.
And you know what's really interesting? You brought up something interesting, and I know it's not one of our senses, but if you talk about the concept of vestibular sense, do you know what I mean? If we put in movement as almost like another sense, I think that by the nodding, people would agree, yeah, maybe that is one of our other senses, kind of, because it's it's such an intrinsic feeling that we get. So I think we put in I think we're going to throw in movement as number 6, and even in that, there's such a spectrum, right? People can want slow movement, people can faster movement. So I think we'll throw in number 6. So Kathy, you probably had 2 there, which is cool. Oh, good.
And I would say movement is number 1 for me.
Yeah. Right. Anybody else have an idea of what they might gravitate towards when they think of their senses that would be soothing for them and get them into that connected place? Yeah.
I want to build on what Kathy said, which is when I'm moving, I feel like my other senses are functioning better. I see better, I hear better, I smell better. I am perceiving what's around me when I'm outside walking in nature, just like Kathy was saying. And so I don't know if we're going to explore what it means for them to be functioning in tandem with each other, or to be, like enhancing each other, or if we're looking at them separately. But that's what came to my mind just a second.
I think that we're humans, and I think it's really hard to pick apart, establish the idea that they wouldn't be co-related with each other. And I think sometimes we know that some things don't work for us as well as others. So the interesting thing with movement is, isn't it interesting that we can move? Some people can, again, some people really need to be physically still to have a stillness about them. But some people need to move to have a stillness about them, right? To let go of some of the energy. It's really about finding a different internal energy feeling, if that makes sense to you. And some people need movement. I mean, the feeling also is different from when you're moving to then you stop moving, and how do you feel after you stop moving? So also looking for this stillness. What are the senses that bring you stillness? Say, Stacy, there's been some smell that she's been noticing, people, it's movement and nature sounds. What else do we have?
I mean, I think about how many of us have shifted into like soft clothes and just in wanting softness around us. And it's not just, I think, the lack of structure. I think there's something comforting about those materials and that we're gravitating towards.
Yeah, for sure. And
with COVID Pam, with
Rich.
COVID for the last year, so many of our senses we couldn't utilize really to do anything.
I wonder, it's very interesting you say that, because I think, talk about what people gravitated towards. People gravitated towards cooking too. And I wonder if either the taste, the nostalgia of certain meals, or the creation of a new meal and new variety and the smell of those things. I wonder if, that was a piece of what we were all looking for too. I mean, we all know when you walk into a favorite restaurant and you smell the smell that you love. We couldn't do that. So then we had to create the smells and the tastes and things like that. So I wonder, if that was the substitution for some of that as well, the comfort and the stillness, for sure. So the whole idea of this, actually, so the homework involved in this is to make your list of what allows you to get to that polyvagal sense of comfort and stillness. The reason you want to have the actual list is because when you are either immobilized or frenzied, you can't remember. Our memories don't work really well. So you really want to have kind of like, in my therapy land, I call it your kind of crisis intervention list. And I'm not sure that we're all hitting crisis, but we all hit these points where we go, I just don't know what to do for myself, right? Whether you're stuck in immobilization or whether you're frenzied. And if you have your list, then you know what to do. Number two, I have had folks actually build a kit for themselves, and they take a basket, they take a bag, and they put different stuff in. I had someone years ago who made two. She had one at home and one in her car, because she'd get in her car. This is someone who was actually a compulsive shopper, and she'd be in her car and she'd want to go. And instead she would sit in the car and go through all of her sensory calming things. And she was able to withstand the urge, drive back home. It was really awesome. So I really think, and that, right, a compulsion is kind of like a frenzy. You can all imagine that, right? When you feel like you have to do something. So I think that's the two suggestions based on this, is to really get your list together. Are there senses that you all know that really don't work for you or have been challenging?
Sometimes it's it's not about, I don't know if it's about a sense per se, but I have to turn off the news sometimes.
Yes.
I have to stop. I become, it's overwhelming. And sometimes that's sight, sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's watching. But I come home from work, we've taped the evening news, and Ian will be like, do you want to watch the news? And sometimes it's like, no, I don't want to watch the news. I need to disconnect.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And sometimes it doesn't feel like being a good citizen.
Well, the only way to be a good citizen is to be a good individual first. And I know that sounds but you can't go out in the world and be great unless you're great to yourself. So take this, take the time you need. But that does make sense to me, Stacey, because it's visual, it's multiple senses, I think. So it does, Lauren was saying, feels like stimulus overload. And I think,
And it's everywhere, right? It's on my phone. It's in my Facebook feed. It's on my push notifications. It's in my car when I get out, turn on the radio. It's on the, I mean, it becomes something that is, up, and I lost her. I guess she's leaving and we have to.
We're all listening though. Go ahead.
What I was saying
Tracy.
just is that it becomes, it has to be an active disconnect. Like it can't just be a passive, oh, I won't do it. I have to actively choose to make it, because it's otherwise it will be everywhere. We're talking about disconnecting
Stacey,
from
you
the news.
actively did it. We all actively did it to begin with. All we have to do is turn it all off.
Right. It's just, again. So
It's
anyway,
impossible.
Dana, we have Dana now.
Yeah.
You guys finished what you were talking about. Were you doing the
No,
the
We were
sensory?
just talking about disconnecting from what you need to disconnect from, and I was saying that the news sometimes.
Yeah, definitely the news. So my topic is pre-COVID versus COVID, because this is our lives right now. And so really talking about it, with polyvagal theory, a lot of times the way they explain the theory is in the 3 C's. You have context, you have choice, and you have connection. So I really like to look at the pre-COVID versus COVID in those types of terms. Context, when COVID happened, we had no idea what was going on. The context was very confusing. We didn't know how long it was going to last, how severe, all of the awful things that were, circumstance around COVID. And then choice, again, what happens when our access to choices are blocked? How do we feel? How does that affect our feelings of safety and connection? And then lastly, connection. I think pandemics cause you to lose the ease of connection. Connecting with people is very easy. And when you can't see them physically, it changes that. So kind of just to have a discussion about what has changed. What was pre-COVID like regarding, feeling safe and rested, and what has it been like now in the last year, and what have you, added or changed or learned from this time to feel those feelings of connectedness and feeling safe? Anyone, just jump right in.
Well, I think pre-COVID, there was a lot of things we took for granted.
Yeah.
Just our normal lives, we viewed them as normal. And now with COVID, there's so many things that we're all saying we wish we could do it that we can't do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's really actually fascinating that humans can adapt to such extreme conditions. Like I was just sharing with the other group that I've noticed when I go out in public now, I'm very focused on eyes. And it's important to me to smile like big, because when you smile big, your eyes crinkle, and then someone can see that, hey, I'm actually smiling behind my mask, because otherwise you have no idea what I'm thinking, or, and so I find that it's interesting that I think people have kind of naturally started to do that, really adapt themselves to the constraints that we have to connect with people, all the, the Zoom parties and the car parades they were having last spring, for birthdays. It's amazing how it happened very quickly that people found a way to stay connected.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? We were talking with Pam, and she was teaching us, about how to, I guess, make our own spaces a kind of a sanctuary, as it were. And I think pre-COVID, many of us, or I'll speak for myself, I was in the habit of, when I needed something, I would go to a place that felt that way, and that I can no longer go to that place. Now it's about creating that place. And so it's a very different scenario for me.
There was a very interesting article, it's a number of months now that I read it, that talked about the loss of our third place, that if your first place is home and your second place is work or school, that your third place is the place that you just go, that has nothing, it could be the coffee shop that you go to every day, or it could be the bookstore, or it could be, the synagogue, or, and that this loss of your third place, these more casual friendships, the people that you would run into, that's a real loss, right? That the people you're really close to, you figured out how to stay close to,
yeah.
But it's this third circle that's become so much harder to maintain. And I, last weekend, we did a couple of things that were social, that we had dinner outside with friends. I took a walk with another friend. I took a hike with a third friend. It almost felt like normal-ish, right? You know, we were wearing masks and we were outside and so on, but I saw like different people in 3 dimensions. And it was really, it was interesting, but I feel this like fear still in terms of emerging from this and what the loss of all these extra bits
Yeah.
has been, and how do you get those connections back, and are they, you know, I mean, it's just, it's overwhelming to think about it.
It's overwhelming, like, because you mentioned fear, you know, and again, like, it's not just, it's like fear of losing the people you love. I mean, that's a very strong fear to experience on a daily basis across the world, really. So it's hard. I mean, I know for me, I was thinking the other day, I had an anxiety dream a couple of weeks ago where I was in public without a mask. It's like, you remember those dreams when you were a kid, you had the, you know, and I was like, it was a really, I woke up really, and I was so nervous in my dream that I went somewhere without a mask. Like, if someone told me a year ago that would be, you know, priority, it's really quite amazing how much our lives have changed, you know, regarding just the pure definition of safety alone, you know, just feeling safe wherever you are. Do you feel safe without a mask? You know, those are the kinds of things that are pretty concrete. And like you said, Stacey, like more of the social connections and all the different levels. I think one of the things that's important too to keep in mind is, you know, with the context, the choice, and the connection is you don't necessarily need all 3 to get to that place of safety. You know, it's not like it's all or nothing. And I think you can move, you know, between those. So I think that's important too, is like, you know, you could still feel safe even if, let's say, we don't have the choice or the contacts. You know, we can't necessarily make COVID go away and have everything normal, but there's ways that we can work around that to, you know, build the connections and feel, you know, that feeling of safety.
You know, oh, I'm sorry, were you going to just, when Stacy said our 3rd place, I thought of a place that pre-COVID was pretty important to me. And I used to go to the Crane Center and meditate at Ramapo College. And the first time I walked in there, I mean, it's a room full of people not talking to one another. And I said, these are my people. You know, as an introvert, I have found my place. These are my people. It's a group that doesn't talk. and it was wonderful. And I was going on a regular basis. And of course, that is all stopped with COVID. And I don't know, I mean, you know, and we've tried to do the connection through, you know, through technology, but I think the physically being in the space, and yet I don't know what it's going to be like to get back to that, because it's a group focused on breath. And, you know,
Right.
You are sitting around breathing with other people. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but that's, thank you, Stacy, for bringing up the idea of the 3rd place, because that was the 3rd place. I mean, I'm doing fine, and I've connected in in many ways. I've Zoomed with more people who I've lost touch with over the past year, and that's been wonderful. But, you know, I don't know. It's been transformational, certainly.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Is there anything that like has helped, you know, or not helped during COVID where you feel, I guess, in kind of looking at the continuum of when COVID happened a year ago to now, do you feel safer now? Do you feel like you're in a better place, you know, with your connections? And what do you think is the biggest reason why you feel better, if you do feel better, I guess, about things?
So a year ago at this time, I was unemployed. I mean, I wasn't unemployed, I was furloughed. So I mean, that was a very, very big thing, and it happened very quickly at the beginning, and it was 12 weeks. So it was a long time. And even now there's you know, I don't work in the most secure businesses for right now in terms of retail, but certainly there have been many things that over the year that have helped tremendously. Ian and I walk every single morning, pretty much rain or shine. We cook a lot. We plan our meals together. I've spent more time with my sons who know were adults but live with us. I'm blessed to be quarantined with people who I actually love, which I know is not the case for everyone. And I've gotten closer to both of them in this. I said I spent more time with Ethan in the last year than I think I've spent with him in his, you know, in his existence up to that. And I nursed him. So I mean, I just feel like we've spent there've been so many good things. All of which I would give up in a heartbeat if none of this had happened. But it doesn't mean that I can't recognize all the good things that have transpired in this year.
Mhm. Well, I think when you're in that, I guess if you look at the ladder, if you're in like the blue or the green state, you can see that, right? But when you're in that red state, and like back in April, let's say, when you maybe you didn't have, you weren't working full time, people were being hospitalized, the news was constant, like it's like you can't get to that place to say to yourself, like, there will be good from this, or I could, I could make better connections, or I could make the best of it. So it's interesting that you can see that perspective when you're in a certain state. It's harder to get there sometimes when you're, more of in that like fight or flight kind of response. All right, I am going to move people around the last room, and then we'll all return back to the main room. So I'm going to see you guys later. I think I am joining. I have to keep track of which room I didn't go to yet. All right, I'll see you guys later.
See you later.
Thanks, Dana.
I'm just recognizing, and Lauren, that you guys aren't talking, and I want to make sure that you know that you can if you want to, and you don't have to if you don't want to. So just to put it out there. Okay.
I'm listening. I'm
Okay.
listening.
I know you've been having a really rough go of it, Irma, and if there's anything that we can do.
Well, the thing is that of course, my husband died a few months before COVID. So that and then right after, I had people that I could be with, that I could see, that were close to me.
Jen's
And then
supposed to be with
just
you.
a few months later, COVID came into our lives, and it was a double whammy for me, because all of the comforts that I had before were gone.
We're trying to get our rooms right, guys.
Great. Thanks, Pam.
Jen's supposed to be with you now, and I'm supposed to be with the other group. Rabbi, if I put a chat in here, will Dana get it or no?
I
It's
don't believe so.
only for this room. All right, we're talking until I can get to the.
Okay. Well,
Pam, you
and
can leave the room. You have a button at the bottom that enables you to, I don't know where it's going to take you, but you can leave this.
You could go back to the main room.
right. I was gonna say, what in Stacey, you'll remember what it's called in the Good Place. What's it called? Janet's Void. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
We love The Good Place. It's such
Watching
a
the show now, but
Yeah.
such a good show. I gotta tell you, the ending is so very satisfying.
We didn't watch the last season yet.
I'm just telling you, it's exactly how
Jen, I'm still with you, babe.
it is.
Pam, I did it myself. If you are you a host?
No.
I'll make you a host. That I can do. I have the power.
Okay. And then what did I do? I went into breakout rooms on your screen and just join the one that you want to join.
Oh, maybe I don't have the power. It won't let me. How do I-
If Jen's a co-host, you can do it for Pam probably, right?
Wait, but I'm the host, and it won't let me make
You
Pam a
have to put me
co-host.
into, this is room 2. You have to put into room 1.
I can't do it.
Yeah, when I hit leave room, it just leaves me. All right, I'm going to be quiet. You guys do your
Okay, sorry. Okay. And Irma, I'm sorry if you didn't finish what you were thinking. If you
No,
wanted to.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I know we probably could use another 2 minutes on these, but we'll come back all together and hopefully wrap up. So this is on, hello, I'm Jen Cole. I know everyone, so that's easy. We're talking about creating a space for stillness. And in my thoughts in preparing the room, I thought of 2 things. One is recognizing that this may not be easy for everyone. And it may be easy for you some of the time, but at other times not. I was thinking about this week, I've done acupuncture, and I lay on the table for about 15 to 20 minutes, and there's nice music playing, and I feel like it's a good vibe, and there's aromatherapy, and it's working, so this is wonderful. I also had an MRI this week where I was supposed to lie in the thing still for the same 15 to 20 minutes. Not so easy, right? My nervous system said to me, you can't get out of here if you want. and I'm hearing things that aren't conducive to that stillness. And it was much more difficult. And just comparing and contrasting the two experiences, even though I was doing the same thing, in the one, I was truly still. And in the other one, I was in shutdown mode. My body felt trapped and I was reacting to that. But in even everyday life, our culture does not encourage stillness. Many of us have been taught work ethic, be productive, don't be lazy. That's the word that comes up when we want to be still. We're always multitasking, bombarded with distractions, and screens of all sizes are calling for our attention at all times. So how do we turn on the off switch? How do we get our autonomic nervous system to turn off in a really positive way where we're feeling still? I saw a quote that I loved this week was, we've moved from being human beings to humans doing. How do we get back to just being and being okay with that? And it's not so easy. And sometimes when we are still, what comes up is uncomfortable. Sometimes during that shavasana in yoga, it's my to-do list, like, oh my goodness, I don't have time for this today. I just need to get up and go and finish my day. That's not the purpose of shavasana. And I was thinking about Rabbi Alana's message in her video this week on transition. How do we hold on with Havdalah to that little piece of Shabbat that can take us through the week, bringing the Judaism part in? How do we hold on to stillness even as we move through our day? And for many of us, those are very, very busy days. So it's hard, number one. And number two is, how do we do it anyway? I'm reading a book called The Joy Diet. The first chapter, you have to read one chapter a week or as long as it takes to practice it like it's breathing. And number one is do nothing, schedule nothing, and do nothing for 15 to 20 minutes a day. I started yesterday, found out if I'm on the beach and the waves are coming in and the sun is just right, I have no problems doing nothing. In Wyckoff, New Jersey, much harder to schedule it, much harder to put that phone down, much harder not to hear what's going on. So when we don't have the beach or the sun or the yoga class or the aromatherapy or whatever the cue is for you, how do we do it? So I think it's important to figure out what works for us and then how to grab it when we can get it. How to take it. There's a book called My Monastery is My Minivan. How do I just grab this stillness when I can get it, when I can't quite get to the beach or the park or that walk and stand there in nature like we're going to do next week? How do we create that? And the monastery part is, I used to go to pickup 20 minutes early to that elementary school every day. I'd park my car 20 minutes early so I could sit and have the 15 minutes. No aromatherapy, but I did turn the car off. So, but for you guys, what cues can you find that your autonomic nervous system relaxes? It signals you're safe.
I'm not sure I understand the question, Jen. What am I trying to answer?
So is there a place that you go, either in your head mentally or physically, where when you get there, I mean, when I got to the beach and sat on that chair, I could feel all the tension drain. I could feel my autonomic nervous system, not in shutdown, in you're safe, you can be still, you can stop. It's okay.
Bathtub. Yeah,
For
sorry.
me, for me, sitting in my lazy boy with Teddy in my lap, snoring.
Okay. And I want to say that still, from a polyvagal perspective, doesn't mean you cannot move at all. So if you have an animal or a child on you and it's just a repetitive motion and you're not doing something, you can still do something. You know, as long as, people say, can I go for a run and be still? No, that's not the point. But can I sit with my cat or my dog? Yes. Can I sit in a rocking chair? If stillness is too hard to tolerate, you can still be still doing a repetitive motion.
Well, this one may sound a little strange, but I used to travel a lot for a living. And when I got on the plane and finally sat down and put on my seatbelt, I relaxed. It was one of the few places I really was relaxing, absolutely doing nothing. And people used to say, how could you relax? You're flying for 14 hours. And I used to say it was all the buildup and the tension and the lines and getting ready and all that. Then I got on the plane and that was it. I was on the plane.
You had arrived, right? I mean, not
And if I
yet,
was
but
gonna-
you had arrived to safety.
Right, if I was going to crash, I wouldn't know it. And that, I'd relax, I'd sleep, and then I'd be there.
Mhm.
So maybe I need to get like an airplane seat and just put it in the basement.
I heard that during COVID, people actually did that. They got on a plane to nowhere. Has anyone else heard about this? They got on a plane,
No,
the plane went up, it circled around or it went in some direction, but it came back to the same airport and that people just felt that was something that they needed.
Mhm.
that was like when you used to take it, when we had young kids, you'd take them out for a walk or put them in the car so they'd fall asleep.
Mhm. Rabbi, I was wondering that for some of us, I know when we walk in the sanctuary, there is a feeling of I can let it go. And I know that you're not alone, but we're very often still in moments in Shabbat. As a person who also uses a sanctuary to work, is it harder to get that feeling from the sanctuary?
I think it depends, right? So these days, to be honest, when it's just me in the sanctuary, it's very grounding and there's a lot of stillness involved. And the other thing that I think can happen sometimes when, for example, a bar bat mitzvah or during Shabbat, when you're sort of in the zone, when things are sort of flowing very, very smoothly, that there's also something very stillness invoking that way. So it definitely happens for me. It's not necessarily a given that that's going to happen in the sanctuary, but something that still makes it a still place for me. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Catherine was talking about her silence group, and I'm wondering, or Kathy was talking. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that I was sharing about the Crane Center at Ramapo College and how I pre-COVID would go there and meditate, and then how wonderful that was. So I think we're going to run out of time though. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, Dana had up, within you is a stillness and a sanctuary which you can retreat at any time. And that's the goal.
Dummies. Yeah.
Was that before COVID, Barbara, or after?
No, I think it's been in the last year that he also wrote Slack for Dummies, but he wrote Zoom for Dummies.
I like that. So we're back. I hope everyone, feels that they have a little bit more of a personalized or, individualized feeling about tools that they have to achieve that feeling of safety through stillness. I'm going to actually pass the mic to Rabbi, and we're good. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. All right. I'm
There we
figuring
go.
that out. So I was just sharing this thought that I was thinking about it actually last night, that stillness has sort of the two still has two meanings. One, still as in not moving, and still as in persisting. And it works in English. It does not work in Hebrew, incidentally, but I've been thinking about it anyway. So I did want to introduce a little bit the Jewish piece of stillness. And so I'm going to invite people to think about, for example, where might we encounter stillness in Judaism? Anybody have a thought about where we might encounter that? Feel free to unmute and to share.
I think in Nigunim, I find a stillness, any repetitive melody that I don't have to necessarily even be singing it, but I find that there's stillness there for me.
I love that. And it's interesting
About
to me
Shabbat.
Shabbat is absolutely right. It is supposed to be a sanctuary in time, as it were, and it is about stillness to a certain degree. Yeah, and I love that these are different sensory experiences. Yeah.
I was thinking about it.
I was going to say during services, there's always a silent prayer.
That's what I was going to say. during the
Yeah.
private prayer time when it gets really quiet and everybody's just introspective.
Yeah, I kind of think of that as like the opposite of FOMO, right? Intentional missing out altogether, right? I kind of like that idea. Those are all brilliant. Yeah, more?
In the sanctuary itself, when you first walk into the sanctuary, I find a stillness and a peace in the sanctuary when you first walk in.
I love it. I love it. And where where is that, Nora? Do you sense that in a spatial place? Is it the smell of the sanctuary? Sometimes that does it for me. Do you know where you sense it?
I sense it internally, walking in, staring at the ark and the light above it. It's like I feel the presence of God when I'm in there.
That's amazing. And I think a beautiful introduction to where I wanted to head next, which is in a section where Ezekiel encounters God. God is described as being in the kol dmama daka, and I want to come back to that. But at first, I want you to just hear what those words sound like. Kol dmama daka, right? And the way that those sounds resonate. And now we're going to get into it a little bit. So this is from 1 Kings, and Ezekiel has been in hiding. Okay, he is at risk. He is very much in a flight or fight state. And it says, and behold, Adonai passed by, and a great strong wind rent the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before Adonai. But Adonai was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but Adonai was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but Adonai was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And that is the kol dmama daka, that still small voice. And so I want to put that in context of what we've been talking about today a little bit. There are these moments of crisis, right? There is the wind and the earthquake. Maybe there is COVID, and there's being cut off from friends, and there are tragedies that we are encountering. And part of the question is, then where do we find the divine? Where do we find the comfort? Where do we find the stillness? Okay. And part of what I think this text is saying is that it's not in the crisis. It's not in these major earth-shattering moments necessarily, but in the quiet response, in the still small voice. And so when we start to think about stillness, that can be where we find the divine. So Nora, for you, sometimes it's in the sanctuary. Stacy, we have that repetitive nature of music that is literally a voice, right? Whether it's that silent moment, we have this whole service dedicated to relating to God, and how many of us find it in that one moment where nothing happens, right? And I think that very much resonates with what we're hearing about Ezekiel, that sometimes that we think of God as in these momentous occasions, these natural, God forbid, disasters. Lauren, I love, and Jennifer talking about the retreat as a stillness bubble. Again, it's that sort of the withdrawing, that still small voice where you can hear the quiet, maybe because you're not in the hustle and bustle of the regular, and that dmama, that quietness, right? And then I wanted to share also, there's the section from Psalms, and interestingly, it gets translated a different way. And we're going back to dmama. This one says, V'dmomati nafshi kigmul alei imo, kigmul alai nafshi. I have stilled and quieted my soul. And I think that what we've been talking about today, by and large, is how do you quiet your soul, right? And so we've been talking about all of these different senses and things that we can build around us that help us to quiet our soul. And so the original question that I intended to ask is, how might you attempt to still and quiet your soul? But now I'm sort of interested, how will you know when you've accomplished it? Anybody want to try to answer? How do you know when your soul is quiet and still?
Well, I don't want to get thrown off the group, but I have to tell you that I'm much more comfortable doing something.
Yeah.
And so when there's a big challenge like, this pandemic, I started thinking, well, what is it that we can do about it? Or what is it that I can do about it? Actually, I wrote Fauci as soon as I heard about this. I wrote my cousin, who's an infectious disease doctor in Massachusetts, because I thought maybe I could do something, whether I could or I couldn't, but I found comfort in at least trying.
In trying. And can I ask, what did you write?
What did I write? I said both to these folks, what the heck is going on and what can we do about it?
So, and I have to say that Eddie, as an empiricist, as a scientist, and as a scientist in the physical world, that makes an incredible amount of sense to me, that is where you find comfort. What can I do? How can I interact? How can I respond? And I think that there is very much an aspect of that Jewishly also. In fact, I think that's what Tikkun Olam is about. It's about not sitting and letting it happen to you, but about how you impact it and finding comfort in the partnership with God rather than in sitting and being in a more passive role. So I think that makes sense too. Absolutely. And what did it feel like, Eddie, once you had done that?
Well, then there was the challenge. I mean,
then there was the
challenge of doing something. And the first thing that I started to do was comb through the literature and find out how this virus worked, what its innards were. And then when I found out that it was a mRNA virus, then I started combing through the literature to find out, how do you undo an mRNA virus? And so I started doing my research.
It's a very rabbinic response, I would argue, very Talmudic of you, right? If I encounter a problem as a Talmudist, how much research, writing, how many words can I put around it to wrap my head around it and finding comfort in understanding and knowledge? I think that makes sense. Okay, anybody else want to share how they know that they have stilled and quieted their soul? Yeah, Pam.
Say that I think that what I've learned is something that I learned a long time ago, but was reminded of, is that finding stillness, and I was thinking of the original quote, it doesn't, and finding calm doesn't have, finding the holy moments that kind of we talk about, they don't have to be big things, right? There doesn't have to be an earthquake and you go, wow, this was amazing, or fear. It can be in really small things. So I was saying to a parent the other day, if you're worrying all the time, she was worrying about a bat mitzvah and she was going to pick out, go dress shopping with her daughter. And I said, if you're worrying how the appointment's going to go, when you and your daughter are sitting in the car and you like the same song on the radio, right? That's a holy moment. That is still, that is joy. And so I think that this time allowed me to kind of turn back that dial again and go, maybe it is just joy to sit with these folks that I care about on my, the four of us on my couch. Maybe it is. So I think that there's a reflective, you need to be still to find what stillness works for you. And it doesn't have to be big. So I was wondering if it was also saying, it doesn't have to be big. In small things like stillness, you can find peace as well.
I think that's right. I think one of the things that I have loved during this pandemic is walking around and seeing the painted stones with just a small message on them, and knowing that there was an intention, that someone took the time to paint it and to read the message and to connect with other people, even if we can't talk to each other, even if we don't see each other, through the message on the stone. And that there is something so sweet about a moment like that. So I think that that's right. I think there's a moment of divinity in that also. Yeah, Nora.
I live my life always rushing around trying to find and listen to all the noise. And I never, ever found that stillness until very late in life. And I finally stopped trying to find all the answers and all the noise. And I found that when I stopped and listened to that still small voice, I found the answer to the problem. And now I just listen to that, wait until that still small voice and I hear it. And that's where the answer to all the problems are. So I don't take action until I hear that voice. And that's where my answers lie.
I love it. Oh yeah, Marilyn, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned the stones, and I actually painted stones and put them on Charlie's gravestone. And I painted stones and put them in my garden. And it made me feel much, much better after I did it.
Yeah.
But you let the stones kick the problem out of your head, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. They are literally skipping stones. Yeah, Barbara.
I was going to say, kind of combining a couple of things that were said. I find that sometimes I'll do try to figure out the answer to a problem and research and do all this work, and then I'm stuck. And then I find I go and take a shower and the water hits my head and I suddenly get the answer.
It's an amazing thing. It is an amazing thing to be human and to have that. Yeah, Dana.
I was just going to say, when you look at something with curiosity, almost like you're observing it, you're not trying to, take it apart by piece and understand it. And it's almost like if you're just observing it, welcoming the negative and the positive, sometimes that answer comes too, because you're really like a curious observer to what's going on.
I love it. I love it. I love that each of us, right, that there is a human experience that each of us is talking about, that feeling of stillness, and that each of us has similar and yet very distinct ways of approaching it. And I think that there is so much beauty to the commonality and the difference. And I want to really fully embrace that. It is 3 o'clock, and I want to recognize and appreciate Dana and Jen and Pam, as well as Lori Yanowitz and the whole committee who have been working so hard. Next week, God willing, the weather will hold, and at 2 p.m. we will be at the Ramapo Reservation for our spiritual walk. I also just want to remind you all that you will have a survey in your email, so please to go ahead and fill those out. Thank you once again for joining us, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great week, you guys. Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
Rabbi,
Thanks.
next Sunday, are you meeting in the parking lot or are you going down to the path?
No, let's meet at the parking lot. Okay. And there'll be more information if there's a hard time parking or anything like that.
There'll be more information. Yeah, we're going to see what we need to do.
My thinking would be maybe to meet at the temple and do some carpooling.
Yeah, I think that's
we talked about that.
Yeah, so we'll continue to communicate throughout the week. All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Will we still have Torah study next Sunday?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, bye.